Hi guys, how are you all today? I hope everybody's having a good day. Um, Exciting week. I'm choosing a random winner today from the last 2 weeks' Facebooks. So be sure and comment today. Let me know that you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me where you're from. You never know. Your neighbor may be stitching right next to you and y'all can connect through this Facebook group. Hey, Judy from Surprise, Arizona. I love that name of that town. I say it every time. So the Andy Griffith Show. She lives in Mayberry there. Um, Good to see you here today. So today we're going to play a little bit. Hey, how are you, Robin? How are you, Patty? Good to see you guys. We've got Priscilla here again today from Texas. And the other T word, the other place that has a UT, I'm a University of Tennessee addict. That's just the way it is. Wow, a bunch of you popped in right now. So, hi, Rita. Good to see you here from my home area, Knoxville, Tennessee. Good to see you, Tammy. Good to see you, Tana. Good to see you, Sharon and Rita. Who else we've got in here? We've got Patricia. We've got Barbara from Talbot, Tennessee. I don't know that I've ever been there. Doris, and let's see here. You can see and hear me great, Judy. Patty is here from Illinois. And, when I was growing up, we always, not being from Illinois, we would always call that Illinois Southern thing, I guess. Once I married a Northerner, a Wisconsinite, I learned that it was Illinois. Hi, Karen from Melbourne, Florida. Hi, Joan from Washington. Pat, you're right down the road from me. Good to see you today. Good to see you, Donna. I'm glad y'all can hear and see me. There's a bunch of you rolling in today. Margaret's here from Florida. How are the turkeys, Margaret? Are they giving you a hard time today? Hi, Annette. Good to see you, Barbara. There's so many of y'all today that I can't say hello to everybody. Hi, Bernadette. Good to see you today. So, as I said, I am drawing a random winner for a free one-on-one lesson with me at the end of today's Facebook Live. Hi, Deanna. Good to see you. And hopefully, who knows? One of you guys could win today. Hey, Phil, you're off work today, so you can watch. So Faye works at my local dealer, right down the road, Mid-South Sewing. And they are wonderful there. Absolutely wonderful. Love them. So hi, everybody. So glad y'all are here and are joining me today. No comments came in, no questions came in, so I'm going to play today. We're going to talk about resizing and stitch recalculation and the different ways you can resize. We're also going to talk a little bit about convert to outlines and convert to blocks and convert to stitches and when you might use each one of those features in PE Design 11. I'll also talk about BES4 at the end and the convert to outlines. So that's what we're going to do today. And if there's questions that pop up in the middle of it, you know me, we'll go and randomly go off on that tangent. So I don't stick to a set script here. That's just not my style. I would love to say that I have it all scripted out for you every week, but I don't. I fly by the seat of my pants most of the time. So we are in PE Design 11 today, and I am going to go over here to my computer screen and grab something from my design library. So I'm in the holidays category and I'm going to grab the snowflake design. Yeah, I know it's not snowflake season, but this will give you an idea of what I want to talk about. So when you resize, there is a specific way that you want to do this. If you want it to recalculate stitches, you need to hold the control key down on the keyboard in order for it to recalculate the stitches. If you just want to resize it to reduce the density sum, you do not have to do that. If you want to keep it in the center of the design page, you can hold the shift key down. So let me repeat that. The control key will recalculate stitches. If you just pull it from a corner, it makes it bigger, but it doesn't recalculate the stitches. It just spreads those stitches that are there over a larger area. If you hold down the control and the shift key, it will allow it to stay in the center and it will recalculate the stitches. So I'm going to do Control and Shift, and you'll notice that my cursor changed to a cursor with a left and right arrow, or a diagonal left and right arrow, and a little stitch thing on it. When I hold the Shift key down, it's going to keep it in the middle, and I'm just going to resize it. So this is my big thing for you all today. When you resize something, you don't want to resize it again. If I come in here and I try to resize this again, thinking I did not get it the size I want it to be, it's going to degrade the design. So you'll notice I've got problems there. So every time you resize a design, you degrade the original design. If I undo that all the way back to the beginning, and I resize that out to that same size the first time, you'll notice that my design stays intact. So that's one of the key things I want you to keep in mind. Never resize a resized design. Always start back from the original. Otherwise, you will have issues with your design. You should be able to, Tammy. You run it through Canvas Workspace. It should automatically trace it and allow you to cut with that. So what else? Marion, do I carry the playbook for the scan and cut? No, I do not. You will have to buy that from your local dealer. I'm not allowed to sell those. I'm not a brother dealer. So, but that's really one of the key things on resizing, is that I really want to stress that is when you resize something, only go once, because it definitely degrades it. The next thing that you want to do after you've resized something is, I first want you to be in metric. I know y'all don't like metric, but hey, you do need to go to metric for this one, because this is going to tell you, has my stitch gotten too long for my machine to take it well, or your machine through PD Design will actually stitch that stitch, but is it going to be so long that it will pick out? Anything over 7 to 8 millimeters, you don't want to stitch that design in that method. So if I left click, I've grabbed my ruler here, and I left click on one side of a stitch and clicked on the other side of the stitch. Now, if I go down to the bottom left-hand corner, it'll tell me how long that stitch is. It's 4.5 millimeters. So that is within the boundaries, and I can choose that. I mean, so that one's fine. I could go in and stitch it, and it should be perfectly fine. But I would want to check this area right here, because that looks to be thicker. So let's go from one side of that one to the opposite side. That's still 7.21. That's just right on that border of where I'd say, okay, now I might need to convert it to blocks in order to change the stitch type. So that, or convert it to blocks and do one of those little tricks that I've been showing you with the the engraving with a line, to be able to split that stitch down the middle. So for most, I would say yes. Any resizing you do, you always want to go back to the original size. Don't resize a resized design, because it's not, like I said, it just degrades it, because it changes what was originally there. And then when it goes to do it the next time, it's changing it again. You'll always get better results if you do it one time. So let's look at other ways to resize, though. So let's come back and we'll undo back to the beginning here. That's my original design, right? So let's come into the size menu. When you're in the size menu, let me go into inches for this one, because I do size in inches. I am an inch girl when it comes to knowing how big something is. If I put the dot in front of size, I can size it to whatever size I want it to be. So let's say I want to go 4 inches. If I want it to recalculate the stitches, I want to choose keep density and fill pattern. If I don't want it to recalculate stitches, I don't put that check mark on. If I want it to size it proportionally, I maintain that aspect ratio. Once I am done, I click OK, and it has resized it to the size that I needed. Now, obviously, I'm too big for my hoop, but let's also check and see what else I'm too big for. If I click on one side, go to the opposite side, that's 0.38 inches, which is, let's go here and here. That's 9.75. That would be beyond the realm of what I would consider appropriate. All right. So what would I do? This is where that convert to blocks would come in. So I select my design. I go to my stitches tab and I choose convert to blocks. This is going to change it into blocks of stitches. I usually leave it at normal because fine, it usually increases your stitch count, coarse decreases it. So that's technically how it's supposed to work. I'm going to ungroup the design. And I'm going to pick this little guy right here. So let me click off of everything and we're going to click this piece number 8 right here. I double clicked it. You can click on it, click the select patterns icon, or you can click on it and click the select tool. Any of those ways will get it. But actually that's not what I wanted to do first. I need to draw my little line, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to draw myself a little line on each thing. And the last stitch type that I used was a running stitch. So that's what is here. I hadn't closed my software since the last time I used it. So I'm going to run me a little line down the middle of each of them. Okay, so I'm going to come grab piece number 8, scroll all the way down through here and pick piece number 57 in this case, because my first line, right? I'm going to double click it to select them both, stamp emboss, engrave that line. And that will split those stitches to where you do not have a big long stitch going in. So, oops. Let me go back and let's pick the second one. So 8 was the first one. 16 will be number 2. And go find my first line here. So notice I've got them both. Did I not hold my control key down? I didn't. Yes, I did. Okay. Select patterns. Stamp emboss, engrave that line. And you would just continue doing that for all of them until there's done. So let's see here. Marion. Yes, there is a reason I would not want the machine to recalculate the stitches. If you have a design that is super duper dense and is not very well digitized, if you resize without stitch recalculation, it will actually without stitch recalculation, it will actually reduce that density. So yes, there are times that I would do that. That I am actually in realistic preview here. This is stitch view. Oops, hold on. You can't see it. This is stitch view. So I was actually in realistic preview. So that's how it would look stitched out, that little hump down the middle there. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Let me come back and let's talk about some more about convert to blocks and convert to stitches. So one of the things that I will tell people to do is, let's say you've got a design that you want to change the specific stitch of one color and not the entire thing. It is easier to do that instead of changing your entire design if you divide by colors first, and then you pick the area that you want to change the stitch type of or the density of and convert only that section to blocks. So let's look at that. What divide by colors does is it breaks your design up into the different color segments. So we'll do a little bit with divide by colors first. So let me select everything over here. Oops, I'm selecting everything over here, not over here. And we're going to press delete. All right, so let's find another design. What do I want today? Okay, so let's say I want a different stitch type on my pinks here. If I go into my stitches tab, because this is in fixed stitch format, I only want to mess with the pink. I don't want to mess with anything else. So what I would do is I would divide by color first. That gives me the breakdown of my different colors. And you'll notice if I wanted to just select one of those colors and delete it, that color is now gone. I don't want to do that, but that shows you what you can do. I want to break this one down though. I want to go ahead and have it convert it to blocks, which will allow me to change the stitch type or the stitch direction or the density. So if I convert it to blocks, and when I click OK, you'll notice that each of the segments now of that pink flower have been changed. They're now in block format. That allows me to click the select tool, the select point tool. I can play with my angles. Let me zoom in on this. So you'll notice I could actually adjust the shape on this if I want to. I can change the angle of things. This only works for designs in fixed stitch format. You need to keep that in mind as well, but you can set and play with it to your heart's content. You can also reduce the density with your sewing attributes. So the default density is 4.5. You can, for this particular design, you can reduce the density. You can add in pull compensation, which will stretch that stitch. You can actually change it to a feathered edge, which is more texture. Not the prettiest for that particular activity, but gives you an idea that something could be done if you wanted to do feathered edges. You can also, as I said, change the stitch type itself. So if you wanted it to be a fill stitch instead of a satin stitch, you can change it to a fill stitch. And that's what that allows you to do. All right, I'm coming back for questions here. Oops. If you have a design that's too dense, can you reduce the density? Yes, you can. That convert to blocks that I just did, you would change the density of each individual section and reduce it down to what you feel is appropriate. Yes, if you're downsizing, you want to hold the control key down. That recalculates the stitches. What do I mean by fixed stitch format? Okay, I can certainly explain that one for you. Let's go look at a design. All right, let me go home and zoom out. If I draw something myself, when you look around it, there are no black dashed lines, right? That means it's an object. It's something that I can manipulate and play with. It's something I have created. It is in my native format, okay? If I save it in P Design 11 and bring it back in, I can still play with it. However, if I save it in a lower version, it becomes in fixed stitch format, or in a different format, it becomes fixed stitch format. And what fixed stitch format designs look like, if we go back to our import tab and we double click, let's bring this one right here in. You notice there's a black dash line around that. When there's a black dash line around that, it means there are no properties available to change it. And anything that you change about it right now has to be single stitch by stitch with the select point tool. So you'll notice if I wanted to play with that, oops, I would have to do it stitch by stitch the way that it is right now. If, however, I converted it to blocks or convert it to outlines, that changes it into something that I can play with. Does that make sense? Because that breaks that lock on what it is. It's no longer, once you convert to blocks, you'll get a blue dashed outline around it, but you won't have the black one. The blue means it's grouped. So if you want to delete things from it, you need to ungroup it first. But the black dash lines, if I tried to delete just a part of that design right now, it would delete the whole thing. So let's say I wanted to come in here and delete that pink petal. You'll notice when I click on it, the entire design is selected. If I divide by color and I click on that pink, that's this pink right here, I can then delete it because each of those sections is now in fixed stitch format. Okay, let me come back and answer some questions. I see some other questions here. Let's see here. Karen, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad it's helping clear some things up. These are some confusing terms and people don't really understand why you would need to use it. Why would I use convert to outlines instead of convert to blocks? Well, if I don't like the way something's digitized, or let's say I might want to convert a design into an applique, I would convert it to to outlines first. Then I could convert each of those parts into an applique. You may have the perfect flower that's been drawn, it's in fixed stitch format, and it can't be turned into an applique. Let's see if I can show you an example of that. So let me select all of this. And let's see here. We're going to trick the software here for a minute. I want to do something kind of simple. So we're going to do outline shapes, and we're going to build a design and export it as something else. Okay, so this is actually a design that is grouped. It is not in fixed stitch format. These are outline designs that you can play with. I'm going to go ahead and save this as a lower version. So I'm going to choose Save As, and we will save this as a version 10 file. And we'll just call it Cake. And this, I'm basically pretending that I would have purchased this design. So let me go open that design. Where did I put her stuff? So here's my cake design that I just saved, and it should be what happened. Okay, I've got a little bug going, so I'm going to hit no for a second. It's because I didn't hit new page. I hit open instead. And that's exactly what happened. I hit open instead of, there we go. So now it's in fixed stitch format. So this is a perfect example of something that I can do if I convert it to outline. So remember, I've purchased this design. I did not create it myself, okay? If I convert to outlines, if I do the whole thing to an outline, then it's going to all be one solid color. All right, that's not exactly what I wanted to do. If I convert parts to outline, then each thing is an individual part and not one whole unit. I'm going to ungroup it. Actually, I don't know that I need to do that. Let's see. We'll go home. We're going to make it bigger, first of all. We're going to choose our applique wizard. I'm going to choose zigzag, and I'm going to choose replace. Click OK. Now I have an applique of each part of that cake, which I wouldn't have been able to do before. Let's hit new page, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to open that same design back up. If I try to use my applique wizard right now, the only thing I have is add, and it would just add an applique around the outside edge. It's kind of like doing it on your sewing machine. If you have a Brother embroidery machine that has the applique button on it, that's what this does. If you have a fixed stitch design, it will only add it around the outside edge. If I'm asking, you're doomed. That's too funny. Okay. Let's see here. Pull compensation. When a design is created and when you stitch a design out, as it travels across the embroidery field, it has some pull. So in the direction that it's going, the stitches tend to pull in. The software in the Brother software will automatically somewhat compensate for that. They have a built-in compensation. But sometimes that's not enough, and that's when you need to increase your pull compensation. And basically what that does is it stretches those stitches along the direction line. So instead of having a gap on the edges of your outline, between your outline and your fill, if you're going on a knit, it stretches those stitches. When you are doing text, It is a method of bolding your text. So that's not all it's used for, but it is a method of bolding text. Okay. So it just stretches those stitches for you. Lynn, I'm glad that kind of helped you out a little bit. I mean, these are, while you use something is very confusing sometimes in this situation. There are a lot of people out there that think after I've created a design, I must convert it to stitches in order for it to embroider on my sewing machine. No, that's not the case. Okay. The reason I convert something to stitches is so that I can edit it stitch by stitch. Let's say I wanted to add in a tie off somewhere. That gives me that freedom to find the first stitch in a design and actually add a tie off in there if it's not been added automatically. So that's really what it is. Karen, what pull comp I use depends on what I'm working on and the design itself. I can't give you an exact number, but usually mine's somewhere between 0.2 millimeters and 0.4 millimeters. More if it's got more stretch to the fabric that I'm going in, I will increase that up. If my design is puckering, that tells me I either have not stabilized it well enough or I have stretched my fabric in my hoop. So one of the misconceptions that we have out there is that you must make your design drum tight, and you should, okay? And when I started, I didn't realize I should not pull it from the sides. And it's okay to pull it from the sides if your stabilizer is adhered to it. But if your stabilizer is not adhered to it, all you're doing is stretching your fabric. So when you release that design from the hoop, it releases that tension you've put on and your design puckers. The better route to hooping would be to hoop your project in there. If the hoop is not tight enough, tighten it up while your project's in it to get it to the perfect tension, even if it puckers in there for right now. Unhoop the project, get it pushed back in. That's what we call pre-tensioning your hoop, and then you'll have much better results. Okay, so be very careful about stretching your fabric. Poorly digitized designs will pucker more than well-digitized designs. Designs that have too much density will tend to pucker more. If you have really long satin stitches, those tend to pucker more. So those are some things that's one of those reasons that I tell you don't go larger than a 7 millimeter satin stitch, because as it goes over, it's pulling in on the sides more, which tends to pull in your fabric and tends to make things pucker. Proper stabilization is key to everything. If you see a design is puckering as you're stitching it, if you will float a piece of tearaway under your hoop and between the bed of the machine, that should absorb some of those stitches. So proper stabilization and using the correct stabilizer for the project that you're doing is key. Okay, so Faye, this machine should automatically add in your tie-offs for you. However, there is a way that you can do it. If there's no puckering until you take your stabilizer away, that means you're using the wrong stabilizer. Because stabilizer is not just for the embroidery part of it, it's to support the embroidery after it's finished. Use the appropriate stabilizer for the project that you're doing. If it puckers, if it stretches, it has to stay. So you have to use a cutaway. These are my mnemonics. Or if you wear it, don't tear it. So that's really, you really truly need to think about how you're hooping, what stabilizer you're using. There are embroidery stabilizers for a reason, guys. They are made for the job. I've heard a lot of people talk about using coffee filters and other stuff, and I just cringe. We have expensive embroidery machines. We have expensive software. You are spending time, thread, money on doing a project, and then you put the cheapest stabilizer that you can under it. That doesn't make sense to me. Use the appropriate stuff for the plan that you're doing, and you will have much better results. It is a learning process. And if I'm digitizing something, I am the first one to tell you, I always stitch out a sample on the exact fabric that I'm planning on embroidering it on. Felt is not your friend, gang, because it's not real world fabric. You must use what you're planning on embroidering on. I just did a logo for my brother. The first thing that I did, hold on a second. The first thing that I did was I stitched it on a piece of cotton. Okay. Knowing that that's not what he was planning on using it for, but I stitched it on a piece of cotton just to see how the stitches went, whether I had them going, had it layered correctly, making sure things are good. Okay. Then I went and found myself an old t-shirt that I had that I knew would be about the weight of the shirts that they were planning on going. And then I stitched it out in all of the sizes that we planned on using. So that's what I do. If you're using cutaway on a t-shirt, you want to cut it away, but not in between everything. You want to cut it around the outside edge. You want to leave as much support underneath that design as possible. But you'll notice I have an iron-on cutaway here, and then I have a piece of tearaway to absorb some more stitches. I prefer doing that to doing 2 layers of cutaway. Okay. Yeah, coffee filters end up in the machine in tiny shreds. There are reasons we have the stabilizers that we have. That you've got expensive machines, so you want to take care of those. All right, guys, where did I go? Oh, so starting and stopping letters. Let me share my screen again. This is going to go deep into the woods, and I wasn't really planning on doing this today. But let's say you have text that's popping out. I'm just going to do 2 letters. All right, so here's my 2 letters. If I want to adjust something about these, I can convert them to blocks. If, let's say I wanted to adjust the shape. Let me do something a little different here. Let's do river. And let's say I want that R to go underneath my river. Okay, I'm going to adjust my spacing here a little bit. Just by moving my little text tool here. And let's see here. So now I want to play with my R. I can't, here's my convert to blocks. Here's my convert to stitches. If I wanted to create my tie off, I would use the convert to stitches. If I want to create the bump along the bottom, I can convert it to blocks. After I've converted it to blocks, I'm going to go in and grab my selected object zoom tool so I can zoom right in on it, and my select point tool. There's a trick that allows you to select things that are grouped. Alt key on your keyboard, click on the letter you want to mess with. You'll notice it's just giving me the tail. So I'm going to hold my left mouse button down and drag around those edit nodes and drag it down. All right, so now I can come in and I can add nodes if I need to and manipulate and play. This is one of the lessons in my Digitizing So Easy workbook, so I'm not going to go deep into the woods with this one, but it gives you an idea of what you can accomplish with your built-in text just by playing with the tools that you have available to you. And those little arrows let you change the direction of things. So I love my directional arrows, I will have to say. And you can just kind of play with it till you get it manipulated the way that you want it. All right, so let's say, obviously that's not the prettiest thing I've ever done in my life, but that gives you an idea of what you can change, what you can mess with. If you needed something to curve more, you can change that to a curve and manipulate what I call wings. These are wings because it adjusts the shape of that angle. Okay. Now, if I wanted to make sure it was going to tie off, go back to my shapes tool, and this time instead of convert to blocks, I could convert it to stitches. So I'm going to select everything, go back to shapes, convert to stitches. Now it's in fixed stitch format. That gives you the ability to change your tie off. So if you go into your select tool, select point tool, you'll notice this is the beginning, basically. This is your beginning of your stitch. And it's pretty obvious usually where it is. So I would come in here and I would add me a couple of edit points. They'll be tucked underneath there, and that's your tie off. Okay, and you would do that for each of your letters. You would just figure out where it starts stitching. So if you watch it in the sew, it will actually show you where it's going to start each area and where it's going to end. So my second one starts right there. All right. Come back in, my select point tool. That's my end one. So I can come in and add a few more to make it a little star. There you go. And that's how you do a little tie off. Okay. I see a question here. I'm going to come back up. So Marion, there are no built-in Puffy foam alphabets. In order to do a Puffy foam alphabet, you must make caps at the end of every letter. Wherever there's an open space, open area. By that, let me show you what I'm talking about. If I tried to make this into Puffy foam, my foam would not have a clean edge right here. So I either need to cap it off or I need to have a running stitch going underneath the whole thing. So the other trick on that is the appropriate density. Puffy foam needs more density than regular stitches. So let's look. And I believe this is a lesson in the workbook as well. All right. If we go to sewing attributes, you want to increase the attributes to the max density, which should be about 14. Okay. That's going to perforate it the most that you can get. Then to cap it off, you would use your block tool and cap off the end. Basically, tuck it underneath the areas. And because you need a cap. And then I would move them up to where they sew first so that they're hidden and make them the same color. Okay. So that's really your puffy foam direction. All right. How are we doing on time? We're doing pretty good. So those are some of the reasons that you might do that. Now, when else might I use convert to stitches? Well, one of the big things is if I don't want it, I may not convert it to stitches. I may convert it to a different version. If I don't want you changing my original design to a great degree, I will save it as a different version or save it out as a different file format. And that way everything stays together. If you are trying to make sure that your design is compatible with somebody else's, saving it as a lower version allows you to do that. There are some limitations to saving it as a lower version or as a different format. Lower versions are dependent on hoop size. So if we did not have a hoop in that version, you cannot save it as a lower version to that version. So let's say version 5 didn't have an 8x8 hoop. I know it didn't. If I try to save an 8x8 design in a version 5, it's going to tell me I can't do that. There is a workaround, but not for version 5. The max size for version 5, I think is a 6x10. It may have been a 7x12. It's been too long since I was in version 5 for me to be actually able to tell you that. And I don't have it on a single computer in this house. because it doesn't work with my operating system anymore. So that's something I don't have. There are many times that right now I go in and save as a lower version in P Design so that I can use it in my BES4. I will first of all save my outline format, which is my version 11, and then I will save it as a lower version so that I can take it into BES4. I'll save it in a 10. The only time that comes into play is when somebody has a different software version than you have. So that's really when it comes into play. It doesn't matter about the machine. My machine doesn't matter if I go down to the SE625 that I have in here. The little SE625 will read my version 11 file. My Quattro will be my version 11 file. All of them then will read it. I just can't use a hoop size larger than that machine can accept. If I pick a hoop size bigger than my machine accepts, it will not see that file. It just kind of goes away from it. Beverly, if you, I'll have a coupon code up here in just a few minutes. At the end of the show, I always put a coupon code up if I remember. So since you've reminded me, I will put one up. You can get them on my website, or you can buy them from a brother dealer that carries mine. Not everybody carries them, but there are quite a few out there that do. Okay, so let's go talk about, let's do this, a little bit of this in BES4. Any other questions before I leave PE Design? Or if there are, I can come back to it. And thanks, Tana. I'm glad you are enjoying the workbooks. Okay, so I have my BES4 up, so we can pop over here now to BES4. Let's talk about designs again. So if I am planning on adjusting something in BES4, I merge the design. And if I'm doing it in P Design, I import the design, because that leaves me an untitled here at the top and forces me to save it in a different format. Okay, so let me come in. I don't have a lot of designs on this computer, so I'm going to go into my P Design 11 folder, library, design library, and let's just pick Floral 3 and see what I've got. All right, if I want to see them as thumbnails, I'm going to change them to extra large icons because I can see them then. So let's say I want to change something about this design right here. I can choose preview or convert to outline. Preview and convert to outlines. Those are my two options. If I choose convert to outlines, and you need to keep this in mind, the last selection you made is what's going to be up there. So the last time I merged a design, I converted it to outlines. When I choose open, it's going to bring that here on the design page, and it will have been converted to outlines. What does that allow me to do? It allows me to come in here and change the stitch type of it. Only of the column stitches though. So if you want to play with it, let's pick a different color. So let me go with green. So your column stitches, let's look at them in 3D. You'll notice how it breaks it up into parts. So you would have to change each of the parts for that particular stem to the same one. And I don't remember what I chose. And obviously I didn't choose the same thing. So let me come pick it again and remember what I chose. Pattern. Let's go with thatched. But then you can change each of the stems to thatched, and they'll all match up. You can actually change the density of those areas. So if it's too dense, you can go up in number. Up in number in this program decreases the space, increases the space between the stitches, which decreases your density. So you'll notice this is not as thick of a stitch. Ooh, that went crazy. Oh, I went 6.0. I wanted to go to 0.6. Like, well, that's crazy. So you can really actually play with a design. You can totally mess it up if you want to, or you can make it better. You actually can change the shape of your designs. On your Tools tab, you can choose the Edit Shape tool, and it allows you to manipulate the shape. So let me zoom in on that area. Tools, Edit Shape. I can add a point, and I can manipulate it and move it around. The squares are the edit nodes for this one. The circles are your angles, just so you know. When you right mouse click, you will have set that shape. And you'll notice how I've got an ugly angle there because I moved my circle. Pete, no, we do not have the capability of doing puffy foam in P Design 11. Okay. And that is convert to outlines here in BES4. Now, if I wanted to use that same design and I want to resize it in BES4, I do not have to use any special tools. So this time I'm going to take off convert to outline and choose that same design. Here we go. And I'm going to zoom out on it. Let's put a hoop on here. In BES4, you want to keep it to 20% unless you convert to outlines. So if I pull from a corner, let's look at the stitch. It's 9,314 stitches to begin with. I'm going to recalculate, resize. It should recalculate it, and it did 11,033. Okay, but you'll notice it did some funky things to these stitches down here. So it did, there's some split stitches, a little weirdness going on there with those stitches. Keep that in mind. Yeah, I know, Pete. That's a sad face, but oh well, it is what it is. We don't have puffy letters there. Okay. What else could I do? Without converting to blocks, I can take out different parts of the design. I think we talked about this before. It would be a complete section by color if it's not built into the software. You select it and you can press delete on the keyboard. So if I just needed the leaves, there you go. I've got my leaves. Oops, undo. So you can break it down to that. Now, can I get further than that? Not without having it converted to blocks, okay? Why else might I, convert to outlines? Why else might I want to convert to outlines? Okay, that would be one of those reasons. So let's say I want to get rid of, oops, forgot to turn the outlines button on. So I'm going to grab this one and we will resize it a little bit. And so now it's telling me I've created a stitch that's too long, and so it's dropped some stitches. I would come into my plus sign and grab my column stitches, hold my control key down. It lets me change them all at one time. And then I can apply that fill. That will override that stitch thing. Mostly it's on this orange one here. So you noticed in the previous one, when I wanted to get rid of parts, I had to take out everything in that one. If I've converted it to outlines, I can actually get rid of just the parts that I wanted to, but you have to pay attention. So let's say, or change the color of a specific part. Let's say instead of, oh, my mouse is being ornery here. Hello. Like I said, my mouse is being ornery. Darn thing. It's been doing this for the last couple of days. All right, let's go back out. Zoom, and let's zoom to selection. Nope, that didn't work. Okay. Try one more time here. There we go. All right, so let's say I want to change this orange color right here to something else, just that one. I would come in and hold down my control key in my sequence view window until I got all of the parts of that one item. When it goes to the next item, you'll see that it's getting, oopsie, how I can't point to that and y'all see it. When I click that last run, it went to the next flower. So let me click it one more time so you can see that it added the next flower. So I'm going to take that off and let's just change that to a different color. So now it just changed that section to a different color. Yeah, I don't have a mouse. I don't have a ball in my mouse. I would like to tell you I don't have a ball in my mouse. My roller thing is not what it's doing. It's the optical item. So I need to clean my optical, I guess. It's just being ornery. And I've changed the battery out 3 times. And I just put a brand new one in it this morning. Let's try it one more time. I'll grab another one. Grab us a fresh one. I think my connection is loose, but we'll try a new one. There we go. Okay. Let me see. Any other questions? Beverly, do you need P Design 11? It depends on what you want to do. If you want to create your own from scratch or do advanced editing, then yes, P Design 11 is a great program. If you want to, time to feed it to the cat. I don't have a kitty anymore. Booger we fostered one for a little while, but I'm highly allergic. So Booger found a new home. We called him Booger because he pestered the heck out of Princess. Let's see here. Yeah, and Leanne thinks it's overused, and that could very well be it as well. It's worn out. I've got 2 of them that are exactly the same, and I love them. But this one's being ornery. Maybe if I change mice pads, it'll work. My dog wouldn't take it, Marion. She's too picky. She's a picky eater. So, Leanne, when are we going to see you back on here? You could take up some time for me. All right, guys. So I'm going to stop for today, and we are going to draw for a winner. So hold on a second here. Let me come and grab the comments. Oh, man. It's not letting me put today's in with it. So I'm going to have to do it. I'll have to announce the winner next week. But I will, I promise, I'll grab the comments and we'll go for it. So I'll notify whoever, I'll put it on here after this, but I will announce it next week in case somebody missed it. But it's not letting me grab your comments today, which is a bummer. Betty, it's always best to keep your software up to date. There are some features that are in 11 that are not in 10 that are absolutely amazing, and I love them. But if it's not in your budget, I'm not going to push anybody to do anything. It's since you have 10, you have the latest dongle. We did not change dongles going to 11, so you won't get left in the weeds. If you have P Design Next, it's a 2-step upgrade for you because you have to get the new dongle, and those will be gone if they're not already gone. So just keep that in mind. Guys, I wish I could make it grab the comments for you today so that I could do this, but my software that I use is not grabbing the comments. So do you want me to post it in the comments here, or would you rather wait till next week for me to pop it up there? Y'all tell me. I'll do whatever you guys would like. From PES to EXP, I certainly can show you that real quick. Okay, so let me come over here. In which program would you like to know? Let me share my screen again. So in BES4, to save it as a different software, all right, I'll announce it at the beginning of next week. You would choose Save As, and you simply save it as a different format, okay, or a lower version. If you are in P Design 11 or P Design any version, you go up to the application button and you choose it to save it as a lower version. You choose Save As and choose your lower version. I'm in a 4x4 hoop, so I can pick any version down to 1. If I want to export it as a different format, I go up to the application button, choose export, and then I can choose my other format to export it for. So if you need to change it to a different format, that's how you do it right there. Okay. And if I'm sending it to a commercial person, I usually will send them the DST file. Okay. I leave the dongle in all the time because I usually have my software open at some point during the day. So it's really, I usually leave it in all the time. Plus, then I'm not likely to use it. It's when I lose it. It's when I take it out and put it somewhere that I hide it from myself. So I kind of like to leave mine in the computer that I'm planning on using it in. But you guys can do what, I mean, that's really, that's your safest security guard against losing your dongle is to leave it in your computer. It's when we start taking it out and putting it away that we lose it. Because it is a tiny dongle. It is itty bitty these days, yay big. And then there's, if you do decide to pull it in and out, what I will tell you is tie something to it. Put it on a keychain. Put it somewhere that's big enough for you to find it. Okay. Yeah, you can actually use the nice thing about PE Design is that you can put it on as many computers as you want. Just take your dongle out and move it to that computer. And that's what I do. Oh, Karen has a tile tracker on hers. That's a good idea. So you can go bang it to find it. Yeah. Or one of those dog things, anything that you can think of to make it to where you can easier to find it for yourself would be my suggestion. If you're planning on taking it out, I don't take mine out unless I'm traveling. If I'm planning on traveling, I take it out with the entire device that I've got a USB device that travels with me. And usually I'll plug it in there, put that in my little pouch, and off we go. That way I know I'm not going to lose it. And actually I can show you that. Usually I'll pop it in this thing and this thing travels with me. So it's stuck in one of my holes and I put it in a nice little secure pouch and off we go so that I don't lose it. Okay. All right, guys. Any other questions? I just showed y'all all my gray hair. All right. If there's nothing else, thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great rest of the week. And I will announce at the beginning of next week what it is, but I'll go ahead and go grab it today so that I don't forget. All right, guys. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. Maybe. Mouse.